In today's project video, I'm going to show you how I made these awesome Doctor Who clothes hangers.
Hey, I'm Lou, and you're watching Live Free and DIY.
A traditional coat hanger is 16.5 inches wide. So I looked on the internet for as many high resolution Doctor Who images as I could find, and I found about 5 that were usable. The problem is that the height was higher than a typical 11 by 17 inch paper. So I had to print the tops of my characters on a second piece of 11 by 17 paper. Overlap the bottom paper to the top paper and then lined up the images to the best of my ability and cut both images. That way I was sure to have the same cut on both pieces of paper when I match them up later. And then I cut away all the extra white paper that I didn't need. I made sure to number the tops and bottoms of the images so I knew which 2 images went together. I found the thinnest pine plywood I could find that was good quality, and I cut them all to 17-inch widths because that's the maximum width of the paper. And then I measured and marked out each height I needed for all the characters and cut the boards to length. I placed the top and bottom images together and marked them with my Sharpie so I knew where they were supposed to intersect. And for this project you need the Mod Podge photo transfer medium. It's important to note that you need to use an image printed from a laser printer, so I had to go to my local office supply store that does professional printing. So basically you just put an even coat all over the entire image. I'm using a little foam paintbrush to do this. And once you have an even coat all over the image, you turn it over and apply it to the wood. Now you want to squeegee it out as best as you can. I used an old hotel key card to do this. Now in this one of the corners wasn't tacking down properly, so I just applied a little bit more of the Mod Podge glue and tacked right down, and it didn't cause any problems. And then I finished gluing up the top part of the image, flipped it over, and lined up my Sharpie marks and tried to get it as close to the image as possible. And like the bottom image, I squeegeed that one out as well. And once you've completed, you need to set everything to the side and let it dry overnight. This is where the magic happens. Get a wet sponge and start wetting the paper a little bit. And then you start basically scrubbing with the sponge very lightly, but enough to get little beads of paper. And you can start to see the image poking through. Basically what you're doing is you're taking the top layer of paper away. This is very difficult. There's a right amount of pressure to put on and right amount of water to use. Too much water and the image might start to wrinkle. Not enough water and the image will tear. Too much pressure and the image will scrape away. So it's all very delicate, and it takes a lot of patience and a lot of work. And once you've gone over them once, you're going to have to go over them a second time, because once it dries, you'll see a haze over the image, and that will just be the paper that is still attached. And I actually went over the images 3, 4, or 5 more times just to make sure everything was clean, because there was still a little haze after it dried. And once I was comfortable enough with the image, I took it to the scroll saw to cut it out. And when I got to the bottom of the image, I actually cut a rounded corner so that the clothes would get on there a little bit easier. I cleaned up all the images one more time with a wet sponge and then sprayed them all with 2 coats of a clear acrylic spray paint. I did a light sanding between both coats, but I don't think that's necessary. To make the actual hanger part of the clothes hanger, I used a hole saw to drill a 1 1/4 inch hole out of a piece of wood, which I used as a sort of jig to bend a 1/4 inch steel round rod to make the hanger. I bent the rod all the way around, and then I used some bolt cutters that I have with some rod bending attachments to it. I measured about 2.5 inches from the bottom of the round, and that's where I bent a 90-degree angle. And then I bent another 90-degree angle at the bottom of that. And then I took some scrap 1x2 pine and cut out a bunch of 2-inch blocks. I took the blocks to my table saw and sawed in some grooves for the hangers to rest in. And then a rabbet on the bottom of those blocks for the hanger to set in, so you can actually face them left or right depending on what you want. And with everything set up, I did a quick sanding on the backs of the hanger images just to clean up the blowout from the scroll saw. And the final step is gluing the hangers to the tops of the images. And this is what it looked like when it was finished up.
So that's about it for this project video. I really hope you enjoyed it and you got something out of it. It's a lot of steps and a pretty long process. It took me a couple days to do everything, but again, I was doing a lot of different images. I actually did 10 total, and these were the best 5. I ran into a lot of problems and I learned a lot of things, and I'm going to talk about those things in my vlog video. But for the most part, everything went really well, and I'm really happy with the results of these 5. So if you have any questions and comments, leave them below. Follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, or Twitter. And if you like my content, please consider visiting patreon.com and supporting me. Thanks again for everything you do. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe below, and I will catch you Friday. Have a great week. Bye.
Hey, I'm...